Greetings and salutations, this is Domingo Martinez, and today I'm going to show you how to control the speed of a DC motor with a transistor. Okay, so the reason you want to do this, let's say you're creating an autonomous vehicle or some vehicle that requires 4 DC motors to act as your wheels. So in order to spin those or to provide enough power and current, you need to be able to have current maximized at all 4 wheels. Okay, so you can control the current to a DC motor with an Arduino using the digital pins, but that's only going to give you so much. Okay, it's only going to give you so much current. So for instance, if I were to connect this to the positive terminal and connect my DC motor to ground here, let's see what my code dishes out. So I'm making sure that I have pin mode 10 set as an output, and I'm maximizing the voltage output applied to that pin, that digital pin, using analog write. So if I were to start my simulation, it's going to spin at 5,555 RPMs, right, revolutions per minute. So that's all good. You can control the speed of that. Let's say you want to turn it off and on for about a second or so. So let's just kind of manipulate this code here. So turn it off. I would just say 0 volts. So it's going to spin, turn off, and turn on. Okay, so you can control it that way. But once you start to get into or add more DC motors, there's going to be a problem. Okay, because you're not going to have enough current to support all 4 DC motors. So for instance, if I were to add another one in parallel, and with parallel circuits you can maintain voltage across each, but there's still going to be a current drop. So notice that the RPMs are reduced dramatically. Okay, and so the more DC motors you add, the less current you're going to have. So that poses a problem. So we need some external power source to be able to supply power or voltage to these DC motors, but still control the current flow applied using our digital pins. Okay, so that's where transistors come into play. So let's stop this. So just to reiterate, let me go ahead and show you what I mean. If I take a look at my voltage, I can supply a constant volts of 5. But if I were to connect it directly to my DC motors, they're going to get 5 volts, which is all good and dandy, but it's going to be a constant 5 volts, and you can't control your DC motors. You can't control the speed with simply the voltage output here on your Arduino. So let's go ahead and add a transistor to show you how to control the speed using an external power source. Okay. So I added a transistor, and right now I just have it set to increase and decrease the speed, from 0 to 255. And that's just a simple rotation. There's nothing fancy. You're not increasing the speed slowly, but that can be adjusted if you add a potentiometer. So the potentiometer will change the resistance values that's going into your base, your base. So you have 3 pins on your NPN transistor. You have the collector, the base, and the emitter. Okay, so whatever is going into the base is what we're supplying with the Arduino. So your Arduino supplies a certain voltage to your base and a certain current to your base. But you can amplify that, so that's what a transistor does. It amplifies the current. So we can amplify the current going into the DC motor, but supplying that DC motor with the voltage from your 9-volt battery, your external power source. So the power source is no longer coming from the Arduino, only the current is coming from the Arduino. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that potentiometer real quick. So on your potentiometer, the first pin of your potentiometer is always going to be your ground. So let's go ahead and connect that to the ground on our negative terminal here. And just for consistency, let's go ahead and color that black. I'm going to go ahead and change the color for all my wires here for ground, just to make sure that we're being consistent. Okay, so this is a variable resistor, so I can increase or decrease the resistance, and we can see how that's going to change the current going into your transistor. Actually, let me go ahead and just maintain a constant voltage here. So instead of it going fluctuating up and down, let's just go ahead and make sure that it's constantly supplying a voltage. Okay, and if I increase my potentiometer, if I rotate my potentiometer, you'll see that my DC motor also increases in RPM, okay, by the same factor. So the ratio between the current going into your base and the current being applied here to the collector, that's called your DC gain, and you can maximize your DC gain or decrease your DC gain based on the resistance that you have applied to your base and your collector. Okay, so let's go ahead and stop that. Okay, so we can control the speed of our DC motor with a potentiometer, but let's go ahead and utilize a program from Arduino. So let's create a for loop so that way we're incrementing the velocity and increasing the speed of your DC motor. So to create a for loop, make sure that you put everything inside your parentheses. So let's create a variable. I'll call it I, set it equal to 0. So it's going to start at 0. So that's going to be your initial velocity. And it's going to extend all the way until, let's say, less than or equal to 255. And we're going to increment by 50. So you open brackets, close bracket, and instead of having 255 constantly, let's go ahead and replace it with a variable I, so that way we can see the change that's occurring in our speed. And let's print this so that way we can view that data. So let's go ahead and activate our serial monitor with serial.begin, and the baud rate is 9600. So now we can print the information. So serial.print lni. Okay, so it should be increasing, and let's go ahead and put a delay here of 2 seconds, just so that way we can clearly see the changes that are occurring. Let's see what happens. I'm going to see my serial monitor, so it's at 50, so you should see it rotating, and it's increasing. So there's at 150, 250, then it's going to stop. I can change my resistance with my potentiometer, so you can see increasing and decreasing. And you can put in another for loop here if you want to show it to decrease. So you can have it increasing up to 255, and then you can have it decreasing by 255. So here, let's go ahead and copy paste when I is equal to 255 for all values greater than 0. And we're going to decrease by 50 each time. So it should be increasing, then decreasing, then back to increasing. So let's go ahead and start that simulation. So it's increasing. And the max here, I think it's going to be like 31 RPM, 32 RPMs. Then it's going to slowly decrease, and you see it decreasing, and it's going to create that cyclical process of increasing and decreasing. So there you have it. That's how you control your DC motor speed with a transistor. Thank you.